if we're looking at like strength versus size, what would be the difference that you see between lifting heavy to get as big as possible versus someone who's trying to lift to get as strong as possible? Should it be the speed of the bar? Should it be the weight on the bar?
A big difference in training for size versus strength is how do you manage fatigue? If you are training for size, scientifically you know that as long as you're not getting weaker, week to week to week, more volume is probably going to get you more jacked. If you are training for strength, you always need to think one session ahead.
How would you look at different sports and try to establish lifts that would transfer to those sports? How would you establish what those lifts are, and then how often, how frequent would you do those same types of assessments in the sports setting?
How many hours a week in every phase of their training can they lift weights for? And how much damage and fatigue is too much for them to concomitantly train their sport? That sets my upper bound on how much lifting I'm gonna have them do. That's a real big deal.
I've heard you talk about you want to be able to take a pill to just gain muscle. Do you think that that could diminish the aspect of the challenges that could pose some type of
developmental stimulus?
Yeah, developmental stimulus, even for things like ambition.
There are two ends of a spectrum for how you can live your life.
We're gonna go into everything that you need to know around muscle building and athlete training with Dr. Mike Israetel, and we're gonna start right now. We were lucky enough to sit down with Dr. Mike Israetel and ask Dr. Mike specific questions around building muscle mass, around improving strength, and doing this through a unique lens. Inside this lens, I started to pitch different scenarios to Dr. Mike around athletic-based training. One of the big factors that I wanted to look at is how can we take some of the theories and some of the applications that he's dealt with and then apply it to the strength and conditioning world. So this podcast is extremely unique. I propose a ton of different thought experiments to Dr. Mike to see what he would do, to see how he would answer and handle these different scenarios. This podcast is fun and it's different. It's outside the box. So there's a lot of information. Get your notebook and start taking notes. Coaches, we are hosting a strength and conditioning seminar here in Pennsylvania, June 5th and June 6th with Dr. Christoph Kipp, Dr. Ken Clark, Will Rattel, and myself. This is for strength coaches and sport coaches alike, and the first 30 that sign up are going to get $400 off. This thing is going to be awesome. Now, let's get into the podcast with Dr. Mike Israetel.
Mike, what's the most consistent error that you think people make when it comes down to building muscle?
It's funny that you should ask that in that way. My answer is consistency is not something they do, and that's the error. Like, you go into the gym and you pick up heavy things until you're tired, and then that muscle gets real tired and sore, and then when it heals, you come back and do it again to that muscle, and you eat like some protein and some calories. You're gonna grow some muscle, at least for a while in most cases. But that presupposes one big thing, and that big thing is that you are coming back week after week, consistently hitting those muscles. If you skip weeks at a time, and months at a time, and then come back and hit it again, all that stuff is just not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. It's like, you're saying, ChatGPT doesn't understand what I'm trying to tell it. Like, okay, how many DMs have you sent it in the same conversation trying to explain yourself? You're like, one. You're like, okay. So it doesn't understand off one DM, you're like abandoning it. The thing is stupid. Like, you can't, like, you have friends that understand everything from one prompt. Like, no, I have to explain. Like, so why don't you explain? Like, wow. Damn it, that requires more work. And so same idea, you went to train once in a month, hit chest, but then you had got busy and everything like that. You're not gonna get results going in consistently. And consistently means even just once per week, per muscle, and per movement pattern. That's good enough to get some good gains. But I've consulted with lots and lots of people in my experience as a coach and as a consultant. And inevitably, I end up asking the question of consistency if things don't seem to add up. And a lot of times the consistency is like, we don't actually have to like answer any questions. Imagine you were like, you had a Spanish teacher, you were trying to learn Spanish. And you're like, I'm just having trouble with these conjugations. And she's like, well, how much have you practiced last week? You're like, shit, Not much. Like, there's no need to give you any insight about the conjugations, give you analogies about how they can be understood. You're just not doing the work. And so a bafflingly high number of people will ask, I'm sure you for advice, definitely have asked me for advice, and I'll follow-up question, be like, well, so how often are you hitting the gym? Like, oh man, fucking it depends. That's it. The rest of the conversation might as well be white noise. So you can't get in there consistently. All the advice I have is predicated on the baseline of consistency.
What would you define then as like that? What is the baseline where it's like, look, when you want to take that step of building muscle mass and you go from 0 to, all right, now it's consistent, where would you look at that as like, this is the bare minimum for 25 to 50-year-old people getting into the gym? What would that look like?
For whatever muscle you want to grow, train at least once a week and train at least 3 of the 4 weeks of the year on average. That's a low fucking bar. But above that bar, lots of great things happen. Below that bar, you can make some gains, but they're not guaranteed. And so if you tell me, look, more or less 3 weeks out of every month, I'm hitting it, and I'm hitting every muscle group at least once a week. Okay, cool, we have a conversation. Now, there are many, many things you can do to become better than that. But that, I would say, is a kind of a good baseline. Anything below that, and again, that's that whole thing of like, I don't know that you really have a process at all.
Okay, so somebody's listening here and they're going, I want to train my chest, I want to train quads, and I want to train lats. What would that look like then if they're training 3 weeks out of that month, or let's just pretend they're actually going in 4 weeks out of the month. What would that look like on a weekly basis?
It's a question that the person has to answer, and the question is this: how many days of the typical week can you make it in to have dependable workouts? Really, a lot of work there in that sentence is done by the term dependable. Because if you aspire to do 5 workouts a week, but you really only make 3 on average, it's better than nothing, but your program is optimized for 5. And you're doing 3, which means for sure your program is not optimized for 3 by definition. And so you're not even getting the best results you could on a 3-day-a-week plan that you could for sure make. So you got to ask yourself, what can I for sure make? And the answer is often 2 times a week. And 2 times a week for whole body, 3 to 5 sets for pushing muscles, 3 to 5 sets for legs, 3 to 5 sets for pulling muscles, twice a week. You're fucking golden. You'll make gains for years. But if you can't dependably do that, well, then back to that old conversation.
Guys, real quick, we're talking about athlete-based training. We're talking about muscle building. What if you could have both? You could have the best of both worlds. And fortunately for you, our podcast is sponsored by our own strength training app, Peak Strength. And to get both, you can join our athletic muscle program. All you guys have to do is click the first link in the description, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength. And once you download Peak Strength, I want you to install the app and then put in your email. I want you to go into the athletic fitness section and then select athletic muscle. This is where you're going to train like an athlete while still building lean muscle mass. You're not going to be a big, bulky bodybuilder that can barely jump, but you're also not going to look like a little string bean. This is the program built for you. Click that first link in the description or the pinned comment. And I got one more thing for you. Think about if you train like this for a full year. You're going to get more jacked. You're going to get more muscle mass. You can get 38% off when you sign up and commit to yourself and your muscle mass gains for 1 full year of training. Again, click that first link in the description. Head over to peakstrength.app. Download it today. Now, let's get back to Dr. Mike.
Okay, so if you can, let's say like dependably, they're getting into the gym 3 to 4 days a week.
3 to 4 days is not dependably.
Okay.
By definition. See where we're going with that?
Let's say, how do I form this in the sense of?
Just say 3.
Okay, 3 days a week. And let's say they try to hit.
You guys are throwers. I'll make the throwing analogy.
Yeah.
How far can you put the shot? It's a question that has 2 different kinds of answers. One is your best ever, which is a fine answer. Another one is like, okay, like we have like little shot looking thingies at the beach. I want you to impress my friends. Like where can you like hit something like with the shot? Like where can you for sure any day, no warm up hit? You better give me a low fucking number and you better not need to warm up and shit because then that's not the answer. On your worst day, how far can you put
50
it?
feet.
50 feet.
Yeah.
And I just give you a shot right now. Fuck 50 feet. We're good. Like that's the answer I want. That's important to me because if I need to build you a program that has shot put volume in it, I need to know your baseline minimum. I do not give a fuck about your best ever. We'll get to that months later when you build up a work volume with some minimum shit. So 3, when people say, I'm not trying to like cram this down your throat, this is fucking awesome. When people say 3 to 4 days a week, I can be consistent, what they really mean is 3. Because that's like you saying to me, it's 50 or 60 for your best, for your typical shot out of getting out of bed. Well, which one is it? Well, it's 50 for sure. 50 for sure. So 3 for sure, I can build you a fucking amazing program. 3 or 4, I can build you a good 3-day program with a 4th optional day. It does change the dynamic a little bit and makes it a little bit less certain. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so how would you look at then if I want to go from, or I'm telling you, okay, 50 is the baseline minimum, but I want to hit 60 in this case, right? Going off this analogy. How do you measure volume, and how do you look at volume in the sense of, okay, how do we get them to 4 days, to 5 days to get to that 60 foot as a baseline minimum? So how would you set that up as far as the analysis of volume then in those days?
So you get them a really good program that's 3 days a week. Let's say we have the push-pull legs analogy still. There are many different ways to do this. One is you get a 3-day program, but it doesn't rotate on the weekly schedule. It rotates on an every other day schedule. Monday, push and pull. Wednesday, legs. Friday, push and pull. Monday, legs. So every 4 or 5 days or whatever, you're hitting either push or pull or legs. That's a fucking great way to do it. Another way to do it is to do push, pull, and legs in the same workout, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But Monday is very push oriented. You do like 6 to 8 sets of pushing, 2 to 3 sets of legs and pulling. Then on Wednesday, you do pull oriented, where pull gets more of the volume. Legs and push get either higher loads and lower volumes, or lower loads and lower volumes, kind of like a speed day, so to speak. And then Friday is legs oriented. And so every week you have like a priority for that day, but then you also bring up the volume and everything like that. Especially matters if your goal is strength. If your goal is just size, the little workouts don't help as much. If your goal is strength power, holy shit, does that help a ton. And so basically that's the setup you can have. And what I like to do is run it for weeks at least, maybe months, and then have the athlete come to me and go, listen, I need more, I want more. I can recover from more, and I love this shit. And my schedule allots for me to do more. I'm like, okay, let's go to 4 days a week. Now we change the program probably completely, because different days a week, you can do push-pull, you can do upper lower, you can do more advanced stuff. That's all great. 4 gives you way more options than 3. And then for months, they crank away at 4, achieving a high degree of success. And here's the biggest way to measure success. What fraction of the lifts are they making? Like if they make 100% of their 4-day weeks, fuck yeah, let's go to 5.
Yeah.
But if they're having trouble with consistency, just keep it at 4 for a while.
How do you measure then if somebody, going off of that, if somebody is successful or not? Like what is setting them up for success? Like this, and I want to, I'm sort of leading you with like, do you want these athletes in this case to comprehend like RPE? Is it RIR? Is it velocity decrement? How are you looking at sets that they'll push themselves and still be successful, I guess, over those 4 days?
Yeah.
Like how would
There's
you
a bunch of different ways to do it. All of them are great. Some of them are better for some contexts than others. But velocity stuff, also proxied by distance. Like if you're putting the shot, velocity and distance are identical. Your exit velocity multiplied by the vector is exactly where the shot's going to end up. I don't know, maybe high wind day or some shit. You hit a bat. I don't know.
more for discus than shot?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
For power sports, velocity is big. For strength sports, RPE is big. Like You're gonna do a double in the squat, RPE 8. Here's how it should feel. If it feels like this, it's a 9, it's too much. If it feels like this, it's a 7, it's not enough. And then RIR for hypertrophy work is undefeated because just how many reps shy of failure. So for hypertrophy, strength, and power respectively, you have RIR, RPE, and some kind of velocity-based measurement, I think is best. You can do with none of those and just go off of sheer performance. So for example, you can give an athlete a set and rep scheme that you know they're going to be able to do because you've seen them train. And then you slowly increase 5 pounds, 10 pounds here and there, and they're kicking it. They're doing their 3x5 or whatever. And if you're there in person as a coach, it's a different thing than if you're watching via camera. It's a very different thing than if they're just reporting numbers to you on a spreadsheet or in an app. Because if you see them, like you know your last set of 5 the athlete's doing in a squat 3x5, you look at that 4th, 5th rep, you know exactly how much weight to put on the bar next week. It's not a mystery. Because sometimes it just flies off their shoulders and like, fuck, dude, and there's another 10 kilos next week. Or they're grinding it and it's week 2 of 4 and you're like, maybe 2.5 next week, or maybe we just hit the same weight next week and we see if they can get a little faster with it because we don't want any more stimulus. It's plenty of stimulus. And then at the end of a 4 or 5 week situation, you can have an open-ended rep max. So it's none of the above. You just say, okay, 3x5. The last one isn't 5, it's question mark, bonus round. See how many reps you can get. If they get 6 and then they fail, hey, that tells you a lot about how close you were. You had a great program, by the way, because you were on the fucking mirror's edge the whole time. If they get 12, my God, have you been underloading them like crazy? Good news, they're way stronger than you thought.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's 7 or 8, you're like, okay, hey, great. We have more room to grow in our next program, and it's good that we weren't too close to failure the entire time. Amazing. So you can just rep max people to find out a lot about what's going on.
So you're essentially using, that would be at the end of every 4 to 5 weeks, you're looking at like almost like a flying test where it's like, let's test this, see where you're at in this setup. Off of that, my question becomes, I want you to go, can you go a little deeper on RPE for strength versus RIR for hypertrophy and why that? Can you just clarify that a little bit more?
So Chad Wesley Smith actually gave me the best example I can possibly use with what the limitation of reps in reserve is for strength work. You got an athlete who's squatting 600 pounds for a double. He's able to do it gun to head for a triple. For sure, these are known things. So technically it's 1 RIR. And you can tell him, okay, 600 is on the bar, give me 1 RIR, and he'll probably do 2 reps. You could have said 600 for 2 would have been the same thing. RPE can offer you way more precision because RPE is situation specific. RPE isn't global, like our RIR is literally just how many reps do you have left? It's like one number. RPE is for 600 for 2. You can have an RPE of 1, you can have an RPE of 10. If you give one of these super heavies like Lashat Alahadre or whatever, right? You give him 600 after a good warm up for a double. They go boom, boom, and it'll fucking probably press it out and dump it. And you're like, the fuck?
Yeah.
What's your RPE? You'd be like, I don't know, 4.
Yeah.
Right? Because he could do 600 for like 15 or something. Then you have someone who's only ever hit 600 once, and somehow they get enough people cheering and clapping behind them that 600 for 2 is RP 10 or whatever competition RP is, right? RP 15, whatever the fuck, eyes coming out and shit. And so even though it's 600 for 2, and even though someone could have had 1 rep in the tank, what kind of rep was that in the tank or how close to it was it? Mm-hmm. So 600 for 2, RP 5 all the way to RP 10, depending on what you tell your athlete, that's a very, very different outcome because they could be like, so I'm supposed to hit 600 for 2, but it's supposed to be RP 8. They finish warming up and they're like, absolutely, that's going to be an RP 10. And you make the adjustment. Whereas RIR 1 was always going to be the same number. And so how you want that lift to look is much more precise with RPE than RIR. On RIR, if you have 1 rep left, that means the last rep you did could have been a grinder, or the last rep you did was pretty easy, but you only really have 1 rep left because you for sure don't have 2. Those are huge jumps. Here's another one. I want you to hit an RP 8 for a double. In our example, that could be 600, that could be 602, 6025, could be 605, could be 6075. Those are all like 1 rep in reserve, right? So RIR doesn't tell you anything between 585 and 615. It's the same RIR. But man, that is a lot of difference to choose weights on a bar. So if you have an athlete that you're like, oh, wait, we need a double at RP 8 today, on average, their average day is 600, right? But in some contexts, it could be 585, and in some contexts, it could be 615. If you tell a person RIR, you don't have that kind of precision. You're just like, fucking hit it. They're like, oh, cool. Because they could have, let's say they did RIR 1 at 600. They did 2 reps, they racked it. The question to ask them isn't, could you have done 1 more rep? Because we're doing doubles today. That's a fucking stupid question. The question is, how many more pounds on the bar could you have done and still hit double? They could have been like, fuck, man, 630 would have gone. You're like, fuck. Whereas RIR, it's the same answer every time.
Right. Okay. That makes sense in that case. It's like one of those questions where you sit there and you're like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, does it really fucking matter for growth long term?
Here's what it doesn't matter for. If you have a set of 10, RPE and RIR, basically the same thing. Because like RP 8 or whatever, for your, you did 8 reps and it was RP 8, that means you could have probably done 10 reps with it, right? But when you go into doubles, triples, and singles, RPE completely is the only measurement because RIR disappeared. What's your RIR for a single? 0 typically. But so let's say your best squat ever is 630. Anything between 600 and 640 is RIR 0.
Yeah.
But if you tell someone go RIR 0, pick your own weight, that's 40 pounds difference.
Right.
That's a very different lift. One of them can just be like, you hit a clean 600, no fatigue. You went home, you'll do it again Wednesday. You know, that building up volume at high intensities situation. Another one is the athlete chooses 640, gets it, and is cooked for 10 days because it fried their shit up.
So that goes in, my next question was going to be, in this case, if we're looking at like strength versus size, what would be the difference that you see between lifting heavy, high reps, and speed? And I'm sort of asking speed of the rep. I'm asking this almost more from like a sports performance perspective, because you'll see football players that like, they're jacked, like just yoked, but they're only able to move shit fast. Like, and their technique might go out the window, but they're still big and they're still erratic almost with their movements. And I guess from your perspective, what is the priority as far as if someone's trying to lift to get as big as possible versus someone who's trying to lift to get as strong as possible? Should it be the speed of the bar? Should it be the weight on the bar? I don't even know if I'm clear on the question.
Great question. Let me, I'm dying, fellas.
You got like the worst tissue ever too. It looks like a paper towel.
It literally is a paper
You're
towel.
blowing your nose with a fucking paper towel right now.
Fucking, I'm raw, baby. So a big difference in training for size versus strength is how do you manage fatigue? If you are training for size, scientifically you know that as long as you're getting little teeny performance improvements or even stable performance over the course of a mesocycle, as long as you're not getting weaker, week to week to week, more volume is probably going to get you more jacked. If you are training for strength, you always need to think 1 session ahead. You need to think, I PR'd today, how much more volume should I do today in order to get better, but also not so much volume that I can't PR again next week and the week after that. So that's the fatigue side of it. Good God.
That is. I'm gonna project something on this because it is a very big thing that people don't think about. That I was just, as you were saying, I'm like, it's like strength is 1 session ahead, performance is like 3 to 4 days ahead. Like if you've got a comp coming up, it's like you've got to think about what is this session doing in 4 fucking days or 3 days, whatever that might be.
Yep.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, whereas in hypertrophy training, you better get real tired because it's the volume that makes you grow. You just try to eat as much volume as you can to still recover, to still perform at or above baseline. Whereas in strength training during various phases, You want the performance to be substantially higher next time. And that means you can't do all the volume, which is why strength training, typically the best results in the medium term are with like 2/3 of the volume of hypertrophy training, sometimes even half the volume, because the fatigue trade-off is kind of a big deal. How do you fly a fighter jet when you have to make sure it's operational tomorrow in case the war kicks off, versus how do you fly it if it's a prototype? Fuck, and you're trying to break it if it's a prototype. So hypertrophy is much more like that. Now, as far as bar velocity, intent to move, and everything, in order to transfer well to sport performance where high velocities dominate, you want all of your lifting to be what's called maximum intent to move if you are training for sport. So anything that comes off your chest or whatever moves fast. And that means for sets of 1, sets of 3, and sets of 10. If you're doing hypertrophy training, we have every reason to believe that intent to move probably just doesn't matter much, and might actually cause you more nervous system fatigue if you really put your fucking foot on it. And so maybe just concentrate on having good technique. And if you want to move the bar fast on the way up, cool. If not, no big deal. But with, so for example, in hypertrophy training, if the reps start to get slower because you're tired, just keep grinding them. It doesn't matter if it's fast or slow, keep going. For strength power training, you better not have any reps you're mailing in, because for hypertrophy, just a muscle contraction is growth stimulating. For strength training, you need maximum intent to move, which means, you guys know, like, people do a set of 5, and the last rep, they kind of just like, They get it done. They're just not really trying anymore. But you got to try. If you're coaching football players and they're bench pressing, they better have a hard time maintaining their arch retraction, because they go so fast on the way up, even with limit loads, that it pulls them out of it. Like, you want to see guys coming up off the bench a little bit. That's really what you want to see. Preparing people for like violence. Yeah.
So, okay, in that case, this sort of goes into, I had a question around and this relates almost to what you were saying with the rep max. Okay, so let's say every 4 to 5 weeks you pitch a rep max for athletes, and they're just training strength. How would you, as someone from like the bodybuilding world, how would you look at that same aspect of like, okay, you're measuring a rep max, and somehow you're seeing that rep max has an influence on their strength or on hypertrophy. If you're doing the same thing for sports, okay, for athletics, how would you look at different sports and try to establish lifts that would transfer to those sports? Like, how would you go about doing that? If you had a tennis player versus a basketball player versus a football player, how would you establish what those lifts are? And then how often, how frequent would you do those same types of assessments in the sports setting?
Yeah, great question. First thing I need to know about an athlete whose job isn't to lift weights is how many hours a week in every phase of their training can they lift weights for, and how much damage and fatigue is too much for them to concomitantly train their sport. That's my upper bound on how much lifting I'm going to have them do. That's a real big deal. And then I'm going to want to identify core movement patterns that are limiting factors in that sport. So triple extension, for example, is like almost all sports require triple extension. How high you can jump with weight on your back, essentially hips, knees, and ankles. And if we know triple extension is really important for your sport, just as an example, among other movements, we have movements that train either the triple extension itself, like a loaded squat jump, or movements that support either the hypertrophy or the strength of the underlying muscles that will make you better at triple extending, like hack squats to get you bigger quads so that you can jump higher eventually when we teach you how to use those quads to jump high. And then I start with wherever that athlete is at, strength-wise, meet them where they are, train them as hard as possible with the containment of their recovery and their amount of time they're willing to spend with me. And the general idea is just get them as strong as you can and as powerful as you can, and then you kick them over to the coach, and the coach has them go win soccer games or whatever. And so the idea now, after doing that for years and looking at all the other soccer players, you can develop what are called normative standards. Like, if you want to be an elite European Premier League soccer player, here's how much you should probably be able to squat and clean and, bench press throw or something. Those numbers are cool. I'll say this, they're not nearly as useful as many people believe they are, and I'll tell you why. Genetics and individual variation crap on those numbers. Let's say I have a soccer player who's like 6'6" and is a goaltender, gifted goaltender. He's like, just not leveraged to squat a lot. Now, he can produce all the same high forces everyone else can. That's why he's fast as shit and can jump really high. But, you know, getting a 6'6" person with long legs into a deep squat is such a mechanical disadvantage that he might be at 60% of the normative values for a typical squat of a soccer player at his elite level. But he's neither physically weak when you interact with him in soccer play. You bump into him on the field, it's going to hurt. He's not moving out of your way. And it turns out like your test of deep knee bend squats is just like, yeah, generally people with shorter legs just do better at it. And so what are you going to do to that guy? Are you going to continue to give him an overall very well-balanced program and make him strong everywhere? Or are you going to be like, listen, you got to talk to your coach because you're 40% off of our normative standards for this level of gameplay. We need to get your squat up. Like, why? Sure, it could help him if he got a squat up a lot, but then it could be so much volume it interferes with his recovery for his goaltending, and now he's like sore and stiff. He's missing balls in practice, and he's learning the techniques wrong. That's a fucking big mistake. So what I would say is, normative standards are cool. So you like, it's like a shotgun on a dartboard, is a funny analogy. It gets you into the rough idea or whatever, but I don't know how much use it has. For example, you have an athlete who is a hell of a squatter in soccer, and we've seen him over the years become a stronger squatter, and he's jumping higher and he's sprinting faster. And he's sprinting like people just get out of his way when he's sprinting. It's so fucking scary. So let's say he's 30% above normative standards on average for a squat. Does that mean you stop training him to squat more? No, that's where his power comes from. You just keep making him fucking stronger. So the normative standards to me are like not nearly as useful as the two things. How much am I allowed to train you and how sore are you allowed to be? And where did you start? And then we just try to, within the constraints of how much we're allowed to work with you, just try to get you as good as you possibly can in core lifts that are big movement patterns in the sport that are limiting factors, like triple extension, like pushing, like pulling, usually very basic things.
Would you look at using normative standards that, like, do you see value in the sense of using normative standards that are less strength-based in this case, just in this specific analogy? Maybe this 6'6" goalie can't knee bend, so they can't squat, but what if they have a high hang clean or, you know, their vert? If you're testing these standards and you're looking at, okay, well, if this kid's clean does go up and his vert goes up, that carries over much more to soccer. How would you use those other areas that you could potentially be testing, like jumps or you know, broad jump, vertical jump, whatever it might be? How would you use those? How would you think through layering them into your program, and then also analyzing other sports and reaching outside of just the traditional strength realm for those assessments?
Yeah. I think all of your assessments have to be very theoretically or practically embedded in utility. You can't just be like testing random things that you have no idea how the story is even told for why that matters for their sport. But things like your ability to throw a Smith machine with 95 pounds loaded on it to a certain height, like the bar throw, your ability to generate a certain peak power throwing a medicine ball down into a force plate, your ability to jump as high as possible or generate high peak powers if you measure things correctly. Those kinds of multi-axis abilities are important. Here's another one you can have. You can hook up a potentiometer to some kind of weight-bearing device, and you have the athletes do a swing motion. For golfers, baseball players, tennis players, resisted swing. See what is your highest power output I'm getting out of you at a certain level of resistance. So you just go like that, you pull it. And you do it with good technique and everything. If I get those measurements regularly, once every 2 months from athletes, I'll be able to tell you how the shit is transferring to baseball and how hard they're hitting the ball. That doesn't mean we train the rotations, which you probably would somewhat. But you can train fuck all as long as you show that you're improving in those numbers, and as long as those numbers are meaningful. Like, do we believe that Barry Bonds would put up stronger rotation power numbers than like some kid at a middle school? Yes. Why? It's the same muscle, same movement that hit the fucking ball and break the bat into pieces. And that's what you want. The ideal situation as a hitter, technique aside, accuracy aside, is you want to have a problem that you're breaking bats, splintering bats on balls. That's the ultimate zenith. Like if you're too strong to play baseball, you won baseball. Congratulations. So we'd operationalize that into some kind of rotational measurement. And then we need to make sure our program is training rotation to some extent, but also the muscles that do most of the work are legs anyway and back. And so non-rotational strength. Rotational strength is built mostly by non-rotational movements, but some rotational as well. And then it's kind of like the pyramid that funnels up. So at the bottom of the pyramid, you're building muscle. Middle of the pyramid, you're building strength. Top of the pyramid, you're building rotational strength. And then you're standing on top of the pyramid is here's my athlete that goes and plays baseball. Because in strength and conditioning, what you have to do for athletes is actually remarkably simple, and most people misinterpret that. The degree of specificity you need for your sport is just very, very super straight up. It's not really complex. If I'm a good strength and conditioning coach, and you give me baseball players, you're the sport coach, and I give you back baseball players that can run faster, jump higher, and hit the fucking ball really goddamn hard, and don't get hurt as much, what more can you ask for? That's not very complicated. Imagine this. You're building robots, and you're building like the Tesla robot. Your job is you're in charge of the servos, like the motor systems that make the legs move around, the arms move around. If I need the robot to do all kinds of different tasks, your job really is to ask me, like, what's the most weight the robot needs to lift? Because if he can do that, any weight below that, he can for sure lift.
Right.
And so how strong do you need the motors to be? And you say, well, 50 newtons each or whatever. Okay, let me go back to the design board, see what I can come up with. As a motor designer, I don't need to know 100,000 different things the robot fucking does. I don't even need to know if he does the splits. I know range of motion on the motor is whatever you guys said it was, and the strength is more. And that's the real thing with athletes, is it's not very complicated. You just need to make athletes have enough muscle to be strong, have enough strength to be powerful, and have as much power as humanly fucking possible within the constraint of what that won't make them too tired to practice their sport and recover from their sport. Because whoever you have for me, making them more powerful is going to be better at almost every sport. Can you imagine looking at a UFC fighter and being like,
he's too strong, he's too explosive.
Enough.
Yeah.
Enough in regards to if there are better uses of your time. So if he's really powerful, but technically he sucks or his endurance sucks, that's the limiting factor. You got to train the limiting factor. But if you're telling me like, nah, man, like he's recovering from the 4 hours a week you give him for strength and conditioning, he's not super sore, he's not tired, how much more strength do you want? And my old boss, Doc Stone, used to ask the very rhetorical question of how strong is strong enough? I want to be able to come into a gym and just go like this to a power rack and rip steel out of it with my hand imprint. Then I might be strong enough. But if you have a wrestler that's in, D1 Nationals that's getting too strong, that's the guy I don't want to go up against for sure. So strength and conditioning, very simple. Make them really fucking big so they can be really fucking strong, so they can be really fucking powerful. That's it.
Okay, so off of that was great. I love that. And thinking through that lens is like, I'm going back to the dumb question of the analysis. And you're looking at these normative numbers, and you know that these athletes have to get stronger. They're going to train them to get stronger as long as they are not having so much damage that they get worse at their technical sport.
It's like not interfering with their sport.
Not interfering with
like
the
if
growth.
The sport coach is like, I can't even fucking train my guys. They can't hit the golf club. They're too goddamn sore. You need to back the fuck up.
Right.
Because hitting the golf ball is like the number one most important thing they do.
So how often then, I guess it's sort of like this.
All the time. To answer your question, it's all the time. I want to monitor their performance every session they come in.
Okay.
I want an RPE report on how the weights are feeling, or RIR, or velocity, or some combination of three. I want total monitoring. I want to know how every lift felt compared to how we expected it to feel. And then every week we increase or decrease the volume, increase or decrease the weights for every single athlete individually, such that they do one of these, and when they're real tired, you give them a deload. Before that, you can give them the ultimate test. All right, rep maxes for everyone. But really, you should know every single week how you're doing. You probably do. Like in your guys' own training, you know when you're fucking having a good few weeks and when you're not. You're not like, well, we'll see in 4 weeks when I'm like, nah, you fucking know.
Yeah.
So the good thing about athletes, people ask, when do I need to do testing? Well, if you have RIR, RPE, or even velocity, every session that you train also gives you testing. Like,
In that case,
that's it.
then, are you going to be, let's say you're working 20 weeks out from a big competition, okay? Let's pretend you got a BJJ, the ADCC is coming up in 20 weeks. Do you put over any periodization model over top of that?
Yeah, for sure.
Or is it just like
Just YOLO.
shitting it out?
No, you definitely have to layer in a model.
And what would that be for you?
It would be, I want to make sure that I understand what kind of game I'm going to play. What are my top 3 tactical approaches in jiu-jitsu for what I'm going to do? What kinds of strength, power, endurance, etc. trade-offs am I going to make to become the best at that in the next 20 weeks? And then what is the sequence of training styles that has to get me there? So I know at least like 2 things offhand. One, whatever muscle I'm going to want to build, I'm going to do it early because the volume of jiu-jitsu training is going to be pretty high towards the end, and that muscle growth is really metabolically expensive, really fatiguing. So I'm going to make sure I build up my muscles that I need nice and big in the first maybe half of that first third. In the second third of that whole process of 20 weeks, I'm going to be working more on simplifying the lifting, reducing the lifting, and making sure that my strength is increasing. And in the last third of that, I'm going to make sure my strength is stable as much as possible. I'm optimizing my power output as much as possible, including more lifts for power. Hilariously, not the very misnamed power lifts. Powerlifting should be renamed force lifting or strength lifting. I've been saying that for forever. It has nothing to do with power.
I don't know if force lifting would actually be that even good of a name, though.
Yeah, they're all kind of like it.
It's like strength lifts, maybe.
Strength lifting.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So towards the end of that, I'm going to make sure I have lots of jiu-jitsu in the mix and not very much lifting because jiu-jitsu is the priority. I'm not being tested on my lifting, and I'm being tested on power optimization, so on and so forth. So that's probably how I would construct a general model of that. And of course, it's just very general. Everything's individualized. You make all these different adjustments all the way through.
So when you're mentioning the lifts for power, what would a power lift be specifically? Like, what would that look like? Is it the strength lifts like a squat or a front squat or a hack lift, or is it something else that you would look at?
Yeah, these are lifts done at a certain percentage of 1RM. Anywhere between 0 and 30% is where power peaks depending on context. You train for power, you want power to be optimized. And the lifts generally should be ballistic or semi-ballistic. Semi-ballistic lifts include like a clean, because you're not just letting it go, but it's floating for sure. And then you catch it. And then a completely ballistic lift would be like a medicine ball throw or a Smith machine throw or a squat jump. And those generally you do with like 30-ish% of your 1 rep max for 3 sets of 3, but you are just launching them every single time. And power training shouldn't even make you tired. It should make you feel like, fuck yeah. And then you do a whole lot of that, you get really used to exhibiting high power. Then you take it to combat sport or whatever, and you're super crisp, super clean, and you can put it on people.
Remember, our podcast is sponsored by our own strength training app, Peak Strength. If you're a football player, a basketball player, a baseball player, click that first link in the description. Head over to peakstrength.app, go to the Google Play Store, or you can go to the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength, put your email in, and then look for your specific sport. If you're tired of doing a lot of work and not really getting anywhere, we want you guys to get to the next level. All you have to do is download Peak Strength and then submit your email, click on the specific sport, and when you sign up for 1 full year, you're going to get 38% off. And I'm going to challenge you right now. I'm going to give you this challenge. If you sign up for 1 year, imagine where you're going to be 1 year from today if you're training 3 to 4 days a week. Imagine where you'll be focusing on the things that actually matter 1 year from today. All you have to do is head over to peakstrength.app, Google Play Store, or the Apple iOS Store. Start committing to yourself. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
So I asked James Krieger this question because and I wanted to bring this up. You mentioned deloading, and one of the issues that I've seen with some athletes, more so women than men, but even some men that I have that are very much like workhorses, they will deload before a major competition historically, and we might see this period that like they're just like Gumby, like they have no feeling. They have this lack of feeling, and then we've played around with a deload maybe 2 to 3 weeks out, and then a reload on volume on specific lifts that might transfer well. He didn't really have a great answer for this question, but it's like, why would that deload not work for some people? And why is it that some people do respond well to that extra stimulus versus somebody else who might just get completely thrashed by that reload going into a peak?
Yeah. I have at least 3 answers for you.
Give me 4.
Okay. I'll have to think about the 4th. So 3 options. This will probably cover most of the reason why deloading of some kind doesn't work for some people. If a single athlete, and a single type of deloading, and he has a poor performance, there are 3 things that might be wrong with that. More than 3, but 3 probably. One is that athlete was carrying way more fatigue than you thought, and that deload did not eliminate enough fatigue. Like Andrei Milanichev, you guys know who that is, one of the best powerlifters of all time, just phenomenal, totaled, hundreds and hundreds of kilos, like all-time world record. He deadlifts regularly over 400 kilograms in training. He only deadlifts hard in most phases once every 2 to 3 weeks. So if you gave Andre his last deadlift a week out from the meet, he would show up a disastrous fatigued mess, and you'd be like, the fuck? He'd be like, a week's not enough, I told you, I need 3. You'd be like, fuck, my bad. But your athletes don't know themselves as well as Andre knows himself. He's a master of sport athlete, so maybe they just don't know. So then they would actually benefit from either the deload being much easier or the deload being 2 weeks back. 2-week tapers are a classic thing in a lot of strength sport, throwing sport, it's a thing. Then there's the opposite, that's option number 1. Option number 2 is the opposite problem, where they were never overreached to begin with, and they recover fast. And what they get is a process called involution, where not only do they recover, but their muscles after a few days are like, clearly we're not needed, so we're just gonna start shrinking. And so neurological abilities also shrink. And so it's just not enough fatigue, too rapid of recovery. Imagine aliens came down to Earth and their physiology was really slow. They needed a month to deload, right? And they told you, hey, you're gonna deload for a month. You're like, no, you guys don't understand. I'll be untrained after a month. And they're like, okay, fine, 2 weeks. You're like, 2 weeks is still fucking insane amount of time. Give me 5 days, I'll be ready. They'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? But the 1 week deload assumption is based on the average person. And some people don't do that. You said females. Lighter weight females can deload for 2 days and reach peak performance, because after 2 days, all the fatigue's gone. And they need to train really often to keep their fitness characteristics high. So that's number 3. Number 3 is you need more practice with the lifts for neural purposes and for strength and muscle architecture purposes, which means a deload gets wiped away and you replace it with like a weightlifting training hall approach. You guys have been around sport weightlifting, yeah? There's a training hall at the fucking competitions. What the fuck? That's not a thing in powerlifting or bodybuilding. Who the fuck trains in the day or 2 leading up to their weightlifting meet? Weightlifters do. Why? Because in weightlifting, if you're not doing pretty heavy singles or doubles, pretty much every fucking day, most days, then you're not gonna be able to hold a peak. Your body's like, fuck, I don't care about how to do that. You get rusty, Gumby like you said. So with some athletes, you can start to take their volume and their total volume, you can cut it in half in that last week. That's deloading. But you also bring them up, depending on who they are, to very high intensities, pretty heavy singles, snatch, clean and jerk, squat, back squat, front squat. And then for them, just enough stimulus to put in there that they're holding that peak, but not so little stimulus that they involute and start to get worse. So the deload is a deload on volume, but not on intensity, maybe until like the last day. So they compete Saturday, Thursday, you go heavy, but low volume. Friday, real light and low volume. Saturday, they're ready. Because it turns out only 1 day of deloading is what they really need. Deloading is understood normally. So what the deload actually is, both how long it is and how much stuff you have in the deload, that is what determines 90% or more of the time of which athlete is going to respond best to a classic 1 week deload where we cut everything by half. Because that's just the best guess for the average person. There's no fucking way everyone could vibe with that. I haven't done a week of deloading in a long time. I usually just take 3 days off. 1 day off, 1 day I come in and train incredibly light for like 10 minutes, and another day I take off. That 3 day mini deload, that gets me 3 more weeks of training going for hypertrophy. That's how I do it. But when I say everyone needs to do it like that, fuck no. Some people, they'll come back after 3 days and be like, I'm even more fatigued now. This is dumb. I need a week and a half. And for some people, fuck man, they need a day every now and again, and then they're golden for weeks. So it all has to be individualized.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic, the example that you're using, we had a girl that got third at world champs in 2022 in weightlifting, and she's the example of like somebody that we would deload 3 weeks out, and then the day before, we would be 2 days out, actually in Colombia, in Bogota, we were 2 days out, and she hit her last warm-up of what she was gonna be hitting. So let's say she was competing on Saturday. On Thursday, she hit 105. That's her last warm-up, and goes out, or no, it was 102. She went out and then goes and hits 102 on Saturday as an opener, then goes 102, 106, 110.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and she's a 49. But that exact scenario would happen, and it took us like multiple world championships of figuring out like, why is it that if she has 5, 7, 10 days of a deload versus another chick who might be a 76 kilo weightlifter, it's a much more, and also there's even examples of bigger women too that, sort of the background too is like we have a discus thrower, a girl that grew up in Cuba, and so the volume that the Cubans would put on her when she was younger is like ungodly high relative to what a standard American girl grows up with, so training twice a day from the age of 12 until 25. And it's like those factors really have a big impact on what the individual is going to need in those individual cases to actually lead to an effective peak.
Absolutely. So the way you do it, if you want to figure out how to time someone's peak well, is you have to play with extremes and work your way through the middle. So you have an athlete just regular in training, you give them 1 or 2 days of very light lifting, very low volume, and then you see how they perform. It could be like they're even more tired and more sore because their body's finally relaxed and it's like, fuck, we have so much healing to do. Okay, cool. Now you know it's not enough. Or they could be like, about the same performance, like, okay, 50-50. Or they're like, way better. Fuck. Then you go, okay, let's give them a week of easy stuff. So we already know, let's say they're way better after 3 days. After a week, which you tried twice, they're worse. Mm-hmm. And then you give them just 1 or 2 days instead of 3, and they're pretty goddamn good. Well, now you learn something real important. That athlete hits their typical peak about 2 to 3 days in, 2 to 4 days in, and way less is not good enough, and way more is not good enough. Now you know something real important about that athlete. You're guessing between 3 or 4 days of peaking and very constrained volume intensity manipulations. You don't have to guess out of range, because a lot of times the standard 1 or 2 weeks of deload taper misses entirely what that athlete needs from an optimization perspective. And then you're just guessing like a lot of wrong things. Like imagine you're an alien, you're designing a car for humans, and you think humans are somewhere between 4 and 10 feet tall. You can make a lot of wrong guesses, man.
Yeah.
Like the pedals are just too far away in half the cars. In the other half the cars, you can't get in. You're like, oh, fucking A. But if they knew humans were generally between 5 and 6.5 feet tall, well, shit, man, my God, that's instantly way better guessing. You're never going to know your athletes perfectly. And athletes change over time, and they change based on conditions. Like you fucking peaked that bitch so goddamn well for Pan Ams, right? But the night before, she's on her DMs with her fucking guy she's dating, and he's not giving her the time of day like he usually is. And some pictures pop up on Insta of him at the club. She's fucking furious. She didn't sleep at all. You have the perfect fucking taper. Mm-hmm. And then she goes and flubs. And you're like, what? Are you okay? And she starts crying in your arms backstage. She's like, Kevin's a piece of shit. And you're like, I swear to God, we're going to Kevin and we're going to beat the shit out of him until he can scream Pan Am champ loud enough that I believe that he is.
These are striking. These are eerily realistic. Actual.
Yeah, it's like events. I've coached before.
Yeah,
it's strange. That's the thing is real coaching is like you got your plan and that's great. And I hate when people are like, fuck having a plan, brother. It's all adjustments on the fly. Like adjusting what? You don't have a plan. There's nothing to adjust, dumbass. Have a fucking good plan informed by how that athlete has peaked over months and their whole career. But when you get to the actual competition, you're going to have to make some adjustments sometimes based on compelling evidence. Usually you just leave it alone. And how are you feeling? Okay, a little more, a little less. But sometimes they're like, yeah, like I had a disaster fallout with my boyfriend last night. I didn't sleep but 2 hours. You're going to be like, well, there's still time to change attempts. Yeah, let's lower the opener.
Right.
Worst case scenario, best case scenario, you get a real low opener. She smashes it.
And gets in a groove.
And then she's like, get me back to the second attempt that's going to win me worlds. Fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
Versus her opener is like sort of shoddy. You're like, thank God we didn't do any higher than that.
Right.
Let's go now to your original opener so we can get some fucking white lights on the fucking board and get you going. And then maybe your last attempt, if you're feeling better, it could be something like that we set out to do originally. But it's all about having a good plan and then making adjustments on top of that.
How would you do this in the case of like peaking football, like a football team? Like you're looking at a team of 22 dudes that are just goons and you've got to analyze all this data.
Yeah.
You know, how would you do the same thing?
For
in that
me,
case?
it's real easy. All 22 guys need to have naked pictures. I need to see the whole team. I need to look at it a long time. It has to be by myself. We're talking about pros, right? Motherfucker, you a pro? Let me see. They're like, what are you talking about? So there are two extreme ends of options that you have. One is you are the only volunteer coach of your high school's football team.
Yeah, right.
And you just don't have the bandwidth to make individual adjustments for people. And so you just give everyone a really similar program. You put in a little auto-regulation in there. You give them a chance of, is it 3 sets, 4 sets, or 5 sets today? And kind of look around and, hey, Billy, was that set 3? He's like, yeah. We're like, that looked easy. You're going to do set 4? Like, no, I'm kind of tired. Like, shut the fuck up and do set 4. Like, okay, fuck, fine. Versus someone's on set 3 and they're grinding it. You're like, you're going to do set 4? Like, of course, coach, I'm going to do set 5 too. Like, no, you're fucking not today. We got a game in 2 days. Chill. Set 3 is good enough. Little bullshit, that's it. That's all you can do. You have a D1 team or a pro team. You have 3 assistants. You can make individualized programs for every single athlete that you have and monitor them and peak them so that they get the peak they need for the big game. Mm-hmm. For example, we got to play against State. We all fucking hate State, right? Whatever.
Especially in Michigan.
Exactly. Michigan State people stay calm. I am a U of M alum, but I don't have a dog in the fight, I swear to God. So, you know, you got your big game against State coming up, homecoming game, something important in football. You have, 22 athletes. You know all of them. You talk to coach, and coach says, the game after this one's a throwaway game. It's outside of our conference. We're going to smash through these people. We'll get accused of running up the score. We're pulling. Almost none of our first string guys are even playing that game. And then after that, we have build up for playoffs. Right? But right now, we need to fucking win this game. Okay. You look at all the guys. You know how they respond to fatigue, fitness already. You have all the data on them. You start deloading them all differently. Most of the guys, on average, 5 days out is when they start to work a little easier in the weight room. Some of the guys are coming in 2 or 3 days before because you know they're fastest and strongest when they get their hands on big, heavy weights for low reps. And then some of the guys are like, I don't want to see you in here after day number 7 days out. Oh, come on, coach, the whole team's here. Like, well, you want to come here and sit around, that's cool. I'm not letting you lift weights. The last 2 times we did that, you got tired as fuck, you got sore, you weren't good for the game. But I know if I don't have you lift weights for about 7 days and you work plyos with the fucking sport coach people, you're going to be goddamn the rebirth, you know what I'm saying, of all the football grades at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's just you, man. It takes you 7 days. It takes you 5 days. It takes you 3. Splitting up you into 3 different groups, you're all going to work with each other. That's how you do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I wanted to go into some of these aspects around strength and conditioning for longevity. And I wanted to ask these questions in regard to almost recovery for athletes. And it's like, how do you think normal people that might be watching this, that are into strength and conditioning, but also might be overweight, struggling, whatever, with their own health, what are lessons from strength and conditioning that can sort of shift into the realm of longevity for like the average person to just jumpstart or get themselves to feel better after they're doing your what were you calling it? The baseline minimum of training. Like let's say 3 days a week, they're coming in. What do you think they can learn from athletes to help with that recovery?
I have 3 categories. Good God, that was tough. 3 categories of insight there. One category of insight is your body thrives on successive challenges, so get after it. Otherwise, you're not going to have longevity, either in the sport or in life. So you got to be challenging yourself. Training's got to be hard. It's got to be annoying. It's got to be like, God damn it, at least every now and again. The other end of that is me blowing my nose. The other end is longevity is about not doing dumb shit that'll break you into pieces so that you can still live to fight another day. There's certainly a time for Widowmaker sets and shit like that, but
Can we remember that when I'm doing the deficit deadlifts today?
you're on YouTube, bro. Different world. You're an influencer. You got to show out. But I mean, absolutely we will, right? All jokes aside. You don't ever want one workout to risk being your last workout. And so people in their totally understandably, and they get a little inspiration mindset, they're like, fucking every fucking set like it's your last. Like, because you do that, it could be your last. How would you fly a fighter plane if it was your last flight? You had a free ejection seat. I would just try to see, like, what does the manual say is the fastest this plane can fly? Well, let's go faster. Okay, chance of things getting fucked up, high, much higher. You know, like, it's not my bill, $10 million to Pratt & Whitney because I broke one of the engines. It's not my problem. Your legs are your engines. There is no Pratt & Whitney. There's just God who gave you your legs. And then you tore your quad off the bone because you're like, fuck it, one more plate on the hack squat today because I feel like it. Give it some thought really quick. Is this something you want to get 6 months out of your career, or the rest of your career is fucked up? A really good example is this, deadlifting. You're supposed to do 3 sets of 5 to 10 reps, deficit deadlifts, big lifts. On set number 3, your back is rounding to the point where you're like, I don't feel like I'm supporting myself with my muscle anymore. And the second to last rep, you kind of felt a little tweak in your ham. Nothing crazy because the last rep felt fine, but you're like, Your buddies are like, let's fucking go for a rep PR on set 4. You're like, I wasn't planning a set 4. Like, come on, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's almost never worth it because probably nothing will happen. And I mean nothing. Like, you're not going to get pussy from the fucking girl that saw you hit rep number 8. She's like, oh my God, I thought by formula you were going to get 7. And we're like, yeah, man, you ever seen someone convert like that in a fucking loading chart? She's like, no, and honestly, it just makes me want to fucking get wet for you. And you're like, that doesn't happen. So forget about that. There's no upside. The downside is 1 out of every 10 times, your hamstring goes. Oh shit. And then they're like, fucking, where's the next nearest, like, I don't know, like quick diagnostic center? How fast can I get an MRI? On the one hand, you want to challenge yourself. That's the key to longevity. On the other hand, you don't want to challenge yourself too much and do stupid shit. Pulling your hamstring off the bone, not good for longevity, for sport or for life. And the last thing, so there's 3 things. The last thing is supporting elements. Sleep, nutrition, stress management are the 3 big ones there. And so if you want longevity in your sport, like you want to be the guy at the Olympics at age 34 and everyone's like, what the fuck? Or you want to be the person who like refuses to croak well into their 80s and 90s. Yeah, man. Sleep, nutrition, and stress management are huge. The real big problem that I see, in especially in American sport, is that sleep, nutrition, and stress management are seen often as afterthoughts. People are so focused on how good their workouts are going that they don't focus on their nutrition as much or their sleep as much or their stress management. In like the Eastern European tradition, you would just go to some kind of training center in the mountains and they would have 5 meals a day, 9 hours of sleep plus 2-hour-long naps, and prostitutes that give you massages to do stress management. And then you would train twice a day and everything would be great. But Americans usually handle their shit privately. As you know, prostitution is illegal. Really, that's the only problem. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. All jokes aside, like, taking care of yourself is a big deal.
What would you say is like the non-negotiable then, from the perspective of like, okay, bare minimum dependable dosage of sleep? Or I guess it would. What's the non-negotiable as far as sleep, as far as nutrition, and then stress management? What are like the pillar things that you would recommend?
You got it. So for nutrition, it is, I would say, 4 meals at least per day. All of them have a fuck ton of protein in them, and most of them are pretty healthy for you.
Define fuck ton.
At least the size of your fist. Like a quarter of your protein needs per day. So if you weigh 200 pounds, at least 50 grams of protein per meal if you eat 4 meals a day. It's really that simple. So there's that for nutrition.
Do you factor fiber at all into that? Sorry.
If you eat mostly healthy foods, then you got your fiber. Because there should be veggies, fruits, and whole grains as mostly your food. So fiber is important, for sure. And your calories should reflect the desire that you have to weigh a certain amount and your training trajectory and everything like that. So you gotta get enough calories. So if you're eating 4 meals a day minimum, high protein meals, mostly healthy food, and you're getting enough calories to support your body weight needs, then man, like, that's it. Most of your nutrition right there. For sleep, the official recommendation is 7 to 9 hours. The reality is like however much you need to be able to be awake and have normal amount of energy for yourself. So if you're always sleepy and tired and you're getting 8 hours, 8's not enough, or the quality of your sleep sucks. Maybe you need more. Some people, everything after 7 they're just groggy. So 7 is ideal for them. So individual, but 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Stress management is one in which the actual optimal answer is really insane. So it makes it simple because the recommendation is as little external stress as you can get. The actual answer is 0. The ideal athlete is a person that only has one stressor, training. Everything else is a de-stressor. So the ideal athlete lives in a bed with the best bed sheets and blankets and pillows and mattresses. When they're not in that bed, they're in the most comfortable couch with all of that shit, watching the greatest TV of all time. When they're not in that, they're in a gigantic bubble bath, and they're always surrounded by 5 or 6 people of consenting age that are touching them and massaging them and draining them of their various excess body fluids. The Bulgarian method. That's a real thing, by the way.
Do the packs of cigarettes get factored into that as well?
You gotta smoke at least 10 packs of cigarettes and drink at least 5 Red Bull containers per training session. Otherwise, you're not really Eastern European. You're never gonna be able to be a good weightlifter. But yeah, the least stress you can have, the better. And obviously people hearing this are like, dude, I gotta go to class. I gotta go to work. My wife's, having our second kid. Whatever you can control, reduce stress as much as possible. When you can't control, do it in a way that just doesn't stress you. Like, people get frustrated that their kids shit their pants and they have to change the diaper. Don't get frustrated at a 2-year-old.
It's normal.
It's not just normal, it's expected. Like, just smile and change the diaper. That's it.
So you had mentioned like success of challenges and what challenges mean for development physically, but also mentally, I think. I'm projecting that second part onto you there.
I'm definitely mentally challenged, so no projection.
I've heard you talk about you want to be able to take a pill to just gain muscle.
Yeah.
When you say something like that, do you think that could diminish the aspect of the challenges that could pose some type of long-term
developmental stimulus?
Yeah, developmental stimulus, even for things like ambition and anything along those lines.
Yeah.
Maybe philosophically.
Yeah, it's a great question. There are 2 ends of a spectrum for how you can live your life. One is you want to minimize or totally eliminate all challenge. You just don't want any challenge. The other end of the spectrum is you want pure challenge all the time. The reality is neither one of those is a good idea. No challenge ever makes you soft as fuck. Only challenge all the time, you will inevitably burn out and you will deteriorate and die, if not just totally lose motivation and get depressed. So what you really want to be doing is there is a certain amount of challenge that's at least enough to make you a better person over time. And there's a certain amount of challenge that's so much that much more of that you can't take. Minimum effective challenge, maximum recoverable challenge. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
You want to stay between those 2 numbers. Where you go between them, there's a lot of questions about that. But somewhere between them is going to get you better over time. and not so fucked up that you like burn out. Because we already know that's where you should be. So like, here's 0 challenge. Here's you can't do any more challenge. You want to be like between here and here, right? And so we need to stack blocks of challenging things that get the total height of the blocks to be in between those 2 values, right? So let's like say, just use height as an analogy. 2,000 feet above the ground, too much challenge. Anything below 100 feet above the ground, not enough challenge. So how many stories are we building? How many stories are we stacking to get you between those 2? Mm. And we take a look at your life and say it's 100 stories, so you're at like, I don't know, 1,000 feet, right? Really super within that, like 100 to 2,000 feet. You're good, man. You're getting enough challenge to become better every day. Now, let's say 33 of those stories represent dealing with everyday life. It's fucking hard enough. Work, family. Another third represents intellectual stimulation. Reading books, articles, watching YouTube videos that make you think. It's tough, you can't just do that all the time. And then another third represents like lifting weights in the gym to get just bigger muscles, like Vanity. If you remove that top third, by taking a pill, it's gone. This pill doesn't require any willpower. You don't have a 1,000-foot skyscraper anymore. You have do you want me to keep going? Super. You don't have a 1,000-foot skyscraper anymore because you just lost 33 stories. You have a 666 devil's number skyscraper, which is just
you
bad.
had to do it.
I had to do it. So all of a sudden your skyscraper is a little lower than you want. You're not getting as challenged as nearly you could recover from. You're not progressing as fast in your life overall because you removed a third of your challenge. There's one real easy thing to do to get right back to 1,000 feet total height, to get right back into what's challenging you as much as you need to be challenged. And that is adding in something else that you weren't challenging yourself with before. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of challenges in my life. I do a lot of different stuff. For me to be able to take pills or have AI agents do some of those challenges for me would be a fucking miracle because I have a ton of other shit I'm not even doing at all. For example, I have a fascination with tactical shooting. I've shot a gun maybe 5 times in my entire life. It's fucking embarrassing. Do I have the wherewithal? Am I able to start doing drills in the range, deconstructing, reconstructing weaponry, learning about dynamics, and then learning how to do like close quarters combat? No, there's just not enough time in my week. And that would be such a big challenge, I would go way overboard. So if I could take a pill for muscle growth, I would either do jiu-jitsu full time, which would be amazing. I can't do that now because I'm so busy building my muscles. Or I would just pick up tactical shooting. It would be fucking unbelievable. It'd be the time of my life. And I have like 8 other hobbies and business ideas that I just never get to because I just don't have enough time. Mm. So if you are a person who lifts muscle for the purpose of physical and mental development, you have nothing to replace that with. No other hobby you want to get good at, no other use of your time. Definitely do not take the muscle pill. This will make you soft up here. And then you'll suck. You'll be jacked, but you'll be like totally not getting better as a human being because you won't have challenge in your life. If you have a lot of challenge in your life and you want a little help to be better, but there's more stories added to the skyscraper anytime you want, absolutely take the fucking pill if you want, because then you solve muscle growth and then you're going to do your own thing. For example, does it make you better as a human being if you have the bandwidth to recover from it to do your own taxes? Yeah, it's hard. People don't do their own taxes anymore, man. Like QuickBooks does that shit for you. Mm-hmm. Does that make us soft as a society? Only if doing taxes was the only thing making us hard before and that we removed it. Imagine seeing someone who's just like a blob and they're just like sucking on a Coca-Cola and you're like, what happened to Frank? Like, he used to do his own taxes, man. Ever since
doing them.
QuickBooks fucked his life up. What? Doesn't he have anything else to do that's going to challenge him? Like, nah, man, taxes, that was it. Okay, then in that case, for sure. But in my view, if you can get help doing the shit you're already doing, and it expands you to be able to do more shit or shit at a higher level, fuck yeah. Here's for sport athletes, I would love the muscle pill to give to all shot putters. How many shot putters love being in the weight room and lifting weights?
Too long, yeah.
Like,
way too
fuck
long.
that.
Yeah.
I want to put the shot. I want to fucking do technique. I want to watch videos of fucking Eastern Europeans doing it from the 80s so I can go, oh, he's rotating his foot here instead of there. I want to do that. I want to be full-time shot put, full-time discus. I don't want to have to lift weights. Fuck that. Now, we lift weights and we make it glorious in our heads because it is glorious, because you're suffering and you're in danger and it's going to make you better at shot put. But if you're able to just take a pill instead, fuck yeah, take that goddamn pill so you can be the best shot putter all the time. And then people say, oh, do you lift weights? Like, no, just take the pill. What are they going to think lowly of you? Cool, dope. Show up to fucking Worlds, see me put that thing. And all of a sudden I'm winning and it's great. And people always say like, well, you got to do it yourself. Like, no, you didn't think that through. Because if you want to do shit yourself, why are you using lifting machines? They're designed by CNC machines. They're like robots helping you lift. That's fucking cheating. There's a whole global economy. How much do you know about powder coating and the steel supply shortage? You don't know anything about that. You cheating motherfucker. You're using lifting machines and a nutrition app to help you eat food. You're already cheating. You're out of your mind. If you really want to do everything yourself and become hardcore, you would do everything yourself. Go to Alaska, build yourself a hut, live by yourself there. You will really quickly find out that just sustaining life is 100% of everything you can do. You don't have time for hobbies anymore. You have time for shot put. So if you're a shot putter and you say, should I take the muscle pill and it's legal in your federation or whatever, give it some thought. I would take the pill for sure so I could just do the sport.
Along those, so I wanted to ask the question you had mentioned earlier. Like, okay, you mentioned earlier your God, like God gave you these legs. Who's God?
My God or your God or what? You mean like in the, what are you asking?
What is your perception of God and who in your case, and even along the lines of like the morality that you just provided in the justification of taking that muscle pill, how do you see morals being established for you personally that you work through and you justify that taking the muscle pill is going to be okay versus somebody who might look at it and be like, no, that's cheating. Taking the muscle pill or taking anabolics is cheating. So I'm morality wise, I do not want to do that. And I guess my question would then be like, where do you think that stems from? Like, is that an innate quality? And that's where the God question was coming from. Is like you had mentioned, and I wanted to ask you like about how you see moral development, who provides it, what provides it, do these things exist from a strictly philosophical point of view?
Sure. I think that, so I'm personally what's called a strong agnostic. That means I've never seen any compelling evidence of the existence of God. I've seen lots of compelling evidence that shows me the probability that God, as most people envision him, is probably make-believe is high. I think it's high probability. I can't rule that out. As a scientifically minded person, there's a very decent chance that God is real. I'm not sure which conception of God we're talking about. No one ever really is. Is it the Muslim God, Jewish God, Christian God, same God maybe? Viking God, Buddhist God. There's tons of different gods. I don't know which one's real. Some of them are described very differently. Is there one designer of the universe or someone that looks over all of our affairs and judges us? Maybe. I've seen no compelling evidence to that extent. And so if I have to speak to people on a universal basis and I can't convince them to do something based on how I would imagine God would like, then you got to talk to people and try to convince them of a morality that just has really one outcome. And that's everyone is doing stuff that at least doesn't interfere and ideally supports everyone having a better time on earth in perpetuity, survival and thriving. And so morality is pretty straightforward to me. Morality is the game theoretic answer to how you should proceed to act in a society in which everyone has their own rational self-interest. And you go, I have my own self-interest, but also all these other people have their own self-interests. How do I act in such a way that makes us all as well off as possible in the long term? And that can answer a lot of questions like cheating. So a really good way to answer that is, if I'm cheating and it's good for me, but what if everyone's cheating? Is that still good for me? No. Is it bad for all of us if all of us are cheating? Yes. So we probably shouldn't do things that are bad for all of us, which is like why one of the reasons why, let's say you're like walk by a 7-Eleven and the clerk is in the back office. He's just like, he had to go and box something. Do you just take a candy bar and walk out? Well, is there anything so wrong with you taking a candy bar and walking out? Yes. The Hershey's Corporation gets robbed of very hard work that its employees did to put that candy bar on the shelf. So that's fucked up. Also, you're robbing the guy who owns the store because he gets 5 cents off that candy bar. So it's already a bad deal to try to take the bar. But that's not that bad of a deal. The bar is like, what, $1.50. That's the amount of harm you're doing, right? Like, that's not a big deal, sure. But what kind of harm is it doing to get yourself into the habit of taking things that don't belong to you? You'll probably go to jail at some point, or people will beat you up when they see you stealing, but you're probably not going to get caught for either one of those things. So it seems fine. Hold on a sec. What if everyone thought like that? Well, we'd have fucking chaos because you wouldn't have property rights anymore, and then people could just take your stuff, and then we would have lack of civilization. No civilization, total chaos. All technology is gone, financing is gone, stability is gone. There's no police. Everyone is living till age 30 in brutal, permanent warfare. Fuck that. No thanks. And so the real question for is my act that I'm going to do a moral act or not is to ask yourself the question of if people consistently acted like I'm going to act, would the world be a better place or a worse place? That's probably a pretty good start point for morality. Like, I'm about to do this thing. If everyone did this thing really often, way more often than they do now, is that going to make the world a better place or a worse place? Most of those are pretty straightforward answers. And funny enough, people of all religions just generally tend to agree. Like, let's say you walk down the road and you see a dude just like wailing on a 9-year-old girl, beating her, causing damage. She's screaming like she's dying. Is there a context in which that's probably a good idea and morally right? Yeah, I guess. She's like the Chucky doll demon on the inside, right? And that guy's the only person in the world who knows that. He's like, you don't understand. I have to beat up this demon. Like, I'm pretty sure that's your 8-year-old daughter. He's like, you don't understand. And like, just when you're about to hit him to prevent it, she's like, Nostros Santos Nomine. And you're like, kill that dumb bitch. Fuck that. That's a fucking demon if I've ever seen one. Let me get a rock, help you kill that stupid bitch. Fuck yeah. The probability of that being the case is very low. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, beating the shit out of people is not good. Because if everyone was cool to beat the shit out of people, you would just beat the shit out of people all over the place. And then inevitably somebody would be bigger and stronger than you, knew how to fight, had a weapon, and then they would be in charge. And that's how you get to like winner take all stupid shit. Almost every moral question can be answered very robustly with, if most people did more of this thing, would it be better or worse? Pretty good answer.
Do you think that's learned, or do you think that's just like an innate quality that's built into us for survival?
It's first of all innate, and then it's layered upon. So it can be reinforced, or it can be degraded, or changed into what you need. So most humans have this inborn idea of there are very good things and very righteous things and very bad things that I shouldn't be doing. And some of those are like inborn. So a resistance, as far as I know, to, what the fuck is that called? When you have sex with your own siblings. What is that called?
Incest.
Incest. Most people have a genetically pre-programmed incest revulsion, where they're like, what the fuck? Like, no one has to teach you having sex with your relatives is wrong. Typically, you just feel like it's wrong. So humans have inborn basics like that, but more details and stuff can be modified. You can say, for example, people generally have an inborn disgust. And some people have an inborn disgust of overt homosexual behaviors. Like, some people look at two men kissing and they're like, that looks gross. In some cultures, we say that not only is that gross, that's wrong. And then in some cultures, like Iran, they'll throw you off a rooftop if you're gay. But they just didn't think it through. Because even though that looks gross to a lot of people, like for me, various foods like onions, if someone's eating onions, that looks gross. Am I gonna say that eating onions is morally wrong? No, I'm just having a lot of feelings about it. So if you see two dudes kissing and you think through, like, what would happen if more dudes kissed each other? I don't know, I've been around gay people, they seem fine, they're super productive, they're actually lower in criminality than the rest of us. It seems fine, okay, cool, fuck them, let them kiss. Okay, you answered that question correctly. So you have a baseline of genetics that gets modified by society and culture to give you that next level of morality. And you can always think things through on your own and reject both your genetics of what feels right or feels wrong. You can reject what culture taught you, and you can make better or worse decisions. Like, Schindler's List type of shit. You know, like genetics taught him, like, we are certain one people, the other people, Jews, etc. They're the other. Like everyone understands in group out group. That's very normal. And then our culture through Adolf Hitler taught us that Jews are evil. But then Schindler was like, both of those are wrong. I'm going to save as many Jews as possible because most of them are fucking dope, normal, regular human beings. Okay, sweet. He made the correct choice. So it's that 3-layered assumption of genetic baseline, culture, et cetera, where religion fits in. And then there's like the human just thinking through their own shit. I'm like, am I really getting this all completely correct? Yeah. That's how I see it anyway.
From a philosophical perspective there, who do you think are like, who are philosophers that you would look at or that you study or that you've read where you're like, these individuals can have a good positive impact on those structures as far as what they're talking about and how they're professing their ideas, and then maybe even in the same light, who are like the negative philosophers, or maybe just start with people that you look at that you've been like, yo, this is like, this guy could actually improve society.
Yeah. Thomas Sowell, who's an economist and absolutely a philosopher, who just like knows a lot of stuff about the world that's true, knows a lot of stuff about the world that's true and many people think is not true. And if they realized tomorrow that it was true, they would all of a sudden vote in such a way or act in such a way that would make the world a better place. One thing that Thomas Sowell constantly talks about is that individuals and groups of people that just quietly work to build a better life for themselves and don't get too involved in politics, they just have a better time than groups that are always trying to involve themselves in politics but don't construct their own productive abilities. You really want to be the kind of group that gets your better outcomes without politics and just being better yourself, going to school, establishing businesses, things like that. And so like that's an instant example from Thomas Sowell's philosophy, which I think really, really applies to most people. When your life's not going well, it's probably a good recourse to ask yourself what you could be doing about it to make it better versus who wronged me. Because the answer of who wronged you is probably complex, probably unknowable to many extents. Maybe it has a clear answer, but probably it's just you, pimp. Like you're the, like you found out who the suspect was and it's just a picture of you. You're like, oh, fuck me. Like this is a person holding you back. It's just you. So Thomas Sowell in that regard. Steven Pinker, another excellent modern philosopher who really just like knows more about the world and how the world works than most people. Steven Pinker has a variety of interesting insights. For example, in almost every way we can measure it, the world gets better all the time. Every few years, the world is better. Most people reject that vehemently. When you tell them that, they don't believe it. 90% of people are just inherently pessimistic. And it makes people more miserable than it has to. And it doesn't allow people to project future timelines and doesn't allow people to act in their own lives in a way that would make their lives better if they knew things were improving all the time. Just a thing you'd have to know. Many people watching this right now are going to instantly be hit with a wave of cynicism and skepticism of me even claiming that things are better. And what they'll do is they'll give a few examples of things getting worse. And that's just called cherry picking. Of course, there's a few things that get worse all the time. So Steven Pinker's big on that, letting people see that like organizing life super well, respecting science, respecting institutions that are capable will allow us to make our world better and better still. And so we can just build a better world together. We don't have to like get at each other's throats and shit like that. And then to answer the other question of which folks are like not doing such a good job with that, maybe people I don't see philosophically as super valuable. Everyone has value. Everyone brings value to a conversation, even if it's like what I think is the wrong opinion. But there are some folks who would have you believe that ways the world works they would prefer are real, but they're not. Well, let me see. I'll pick someone from both sides of the spectrum. So like on the leftist side, Mamdani, the mayor of New York, I mean, just a lot of ideas that have been proven categorically wrong in modern economics. It's just wrong, It's like someone comes in and trains a D1 football team and you're like, we're gonna do sets of 30 on only isolation machines, get the guys real tired, because through that mental tiredness, they're gonna learn how to be faster. You're gonna be like, my God, that's not how it works at all. You're gonna make the team slower for sure. It's just a fact, and you will.
What specifically with him?
Pick a policy. I mean, like, so anything other than completely removing rent control in New York is a fucking disaster and will cause rent to continue to be escalating. Another one is putting away criminals. So we know very, very robustly the vast majority of crime everywhere is committed by a very small minority of the population. This has nothing to do with age or race or gender. It has to do with literally specific individuals. Like, that's that guy that does crime. And you can see this every now and again. Reports come out of some guy got arrested for something, and it was his 42nd conviction. What the fuck? And we know through the data that after a few convictions, your probability to be a repeat offender up until you age out of crime, which happens in like your 50s, it's really high. And so we could easily have a policy in New York City in which the first time you shoplift, we go, shit, everyone fucks up. The second time you shoplift, we go, listen, you need to go and get your economic situation handled. We got all these resources for you. We're gonna get you a psychotherapist, figure out what the fuck's wrong with you, help you, being facetious, but really, service, no jail. The third time you shoplift, prison for 1 year. A very nice prison. Mamdani could be making prisons amazing. 4 square meals a day, all the Netflix you can watch, all the internet scrolling you want, all just amazing. Just you can't be in public because you seem to just fuck up all the time. And then the fourth time, imagine going through all that and being told every single time, you know this in advance, the fourth time you shoplift, you're going to prison for 5 years. And the fifth time you shoplift, it's 20 years. Exponential escalating sentences. The people that just cannot be rehabilitated, which is most violent and serious offenders, can't be, seemingly, then they just go to prison for a long, long time. And they're not around anymore. And every single study looks at the same thing. Crime drops by a factor of 10. You could just have 10 times less crime in New York in a year if you wanted. He's not doing any of that stuff because he either represents a constituency and or himself just has a lot of feelings. Very valid feelings, I might add. It's fucked up to put people in cages. My God, this is another grown man. I'm telling him he can't be around society because I have certain feelings about this is bad and this is good. He's gonna sit in a literal fucking cage. That's fucked up. For sure it's fucked up. The alternative, he's out there doing crime to regular people. That to me is worse. So off he goes. And we don't want to make it a cage. We want to make it as pristine as possible. But that's kind of thinking about things and trade-offs. That's something Thomas Sowell or Steven Pinker would say. Let's look at the logic of crime and figure out what to do. Mamdani doesn't do the logic of much of anything. He's just feelings-based. And then on the other end of the political spectrum is somebody like Tucker Carlson, who says a bunch of shit that's just make-believe nonsense, total fucking nonsense. And sometimes I squint my eyes and think, is Tucker Carlson literally being, is he being handled by either the Iranian or the Russian or the Chinese propaganda ministries? You're doing propaganda for evil countries for free. Why? It's just the most anti-American shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's just, I think it just works well for his algorithm and he does it. I don't know why he does it. Maybe he really believes those things. But it's totally insane. The good litmus test is the war in Ukraine. Real good litmus test of if people are thinking shit through. Who started the war in Ukraine? Russia, only. It's the only country that did it. Then people say, well, imagine China was trying to put military bases in Canada. Wouldn't we invade Canada? You think we'd invade Toronto? We'd bomb the buildings with our fellow Canadians in them? Regular fucking people? No fucking wouldn't invade Canada. It's nuts. But second, there's a fucking stupid argument because we already have NATO bases in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and we've had them for a generation. Putin didn't do anything about them because NATO's not an offensive alliance. NATO's never coming to take over Russia, ever. It's not part of the plan. Nobody needs to take over Russia. And so if you look at what side of the aisle someone's on, there are very good reasons to be skeptical of the Ukraine war. But if you start saying that Russia's a great place and is blameless for this, like Tucker Carlson has, I can't tell anymore if you're just doing it for clicks. If you really think that somehow in some strange way, because I'm from Russia, I lived there, I was born there. It's not a place you want to go. And then maybe he's being paid off. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think he's being paid off by anyone. I think he's really just doing the thing, not helping. And his channel, among many others, is one that just basically does rage bait. They want you to feel fucking pissed. They want you to feel, and it's hurting the American unity as a peoples. Again, I can't during World War II, if Tucker Carlson said the same shit about, actually he is a little bit pro-fascist at this point, he would just be straight up investigated for is Germany paying you to say these things? We have a free speech. I think he should be saying all the things that he's saying, but I think he's wrong a lot. It's just an example.
Okay, off of the philosophical stuff, I wanted to ask you a couple questions because I know you're writing a book right now, or you've written a book on Physique and Vanity. And something that, as a former super fat shot putter weighing 300 pounds, as I've lost weight, as I've gotten into weight loss and trying to be healthier long term, I've sort of struggled through this mindset of like, when is it a proud moment to post a picture of me with my shirt off, being leaner, versus overbearing, versus you're vain, versus you're a narcissist who just wants to post your image everywhere. Like, how do you cycle through that mentally? Do you cycle through that mentally? And then get us into your book a little bit and what you're going to be covering with that.
Yeah, great question. To me, there are like two independent-ish elements of how you do vanity. The first element, the first axis is like, how much do you give a shit about how you look? And the second one, because it can be like none, it can be like some, it could be like, oh my God, this is everything to me. Then the second independent axis, like X and Y axis, the Y axis of that is like, what is your approach to that on the degree of anywhere from super positive to neutral to toxic? So if you care about your appearance a shitload and you're real toxic about it, you're gonna have a bad time and everyone around you is gonna think you're a piece of shit. An example of that is never thinking you look good enough, even for yourself. Working tirelessly to make yourself look better, only ever seeing your flaws. Comparing yourself ruthlessly to other people, even though that's fucking stupid because everyone has different genetics and different everything. And also hating on other people a ton. So like, you go on Instagram, someone posts a selfie, you're like, yeah, your abs could be clearer, you look like shit. Then you look in your own mirror, you fucking hate yourself, you cry. It's never enough. You get in the best shape ever and you're like, oh, still this one vein isn't where it is. You're just engineering a bad time for yourself and for everybody else. On the other end of that is a whole lot of investment into your physique, but a ton of positivity. So you come at it from the place of, I'm already loving what I look like now, but I want to look even better and love it even more. Like if someone originally has $50 million and they're working to have $100 million, you're like, you don't have to be like, so you felt poor at 50? Like, no, I didn't. I felt rich as fuck. Be like, why do you want more? Like, to feel even more rich. Like, right, both of those can be true. So you're pretty good with how you look. You love making improvements, and you love comparing yourself only to yourself. And when you make improvements, you really feel the vibe of that, and you're happy about it. And when you see other people working anywhere on their aesthetic journey, you're so fucking supportive. Somebody posts a selfie 2 weeks later looking basically the same. You got a comment choice, 3 types of comments. One is kill yourself or whatever people say, you look like shit. Another is no comment at all. And one is like, keep going. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to tell them they look better. You're not a liar. You're not lying to people. They look the same. Keep up the great work. What a great thing to say to somebody. Because not only do you value how you look, you understand other people value how they look. And it means something to them for you to say kind things. So you can be that. And then like, so there's like high toxic, high positive. Then there's low on both. Go ask the average person who works at like XAI, Elon's AI company. Like, what do you think about how you look? They'd be like, I don't really think about how I look, man. I put on clothes to cover my body, so I go to the office for 12 hours a day and think about computer science. Like, what do you think about biceps, triceps? Like, that the one on the front, the one on the back? You're like, huh. Well, this person legitimately just does not give a fuck. You guys ever see people who are going out, their friends go out, and they put on going out clothes, and you're like, what brand is that? How do you think you like your fit? They're like, this is what people tell me people go out in. I could give a flying fuck. There's nothing wrong with that in a million years. And so the book basically says like, here's how to do positive, non-toxic vanity if you want it. There's just amazing things there for you. And you'll be able to look like damn near whatever you want in about 15 years. The tech is gonna get so crazy, genetic engineering and everything, that we're all gonna look like what we want. Don't do the negativity shit, that's bad. Talks about how that's not great. And then if you don't give a fuck about vanity at all, God bless you, man. You really did win the big one. But the reality is that most people do care about how they look, to some extent at least. A lot of people care a lot about how they look. And so we should be supporting them in their vanity goals that are healthy and balanced and sane, instead of telling them vanity is a sin, don't do vanity. Like that ship has sailed. Most people are gonna be like, cool. Anyway, what creatine do I buy? Because they're not listening to you anymore.
Do you think vanity has anything to do with and looking good, being healthy, being healthy, looking good, vanity, do you think that has to do with like the survival instinct and people are more attracted to being healthier to a point and recognizing it? Like, is there any innate thing that we have that's like, yo, I like looking good because I'm actually just healthier and I want to put that out there.
That's definitely an innate thing. It's not conscious. So you typically don't know that you want to look healthier. You just know a certain look makes you look healthier. And when you look like that, you feel fucking good. Like right now, I'm really sick, obviously. I don't feel like I need to be in the mirror looking at myself because I'm like, eh. But when I'm feeling my vibe, I feel great. I think I look great. Things are super great. I can't tell. I'd have to learn from a book the evolutionary logic of that. It's not like my brain tells me like, you need to maximize survival and reproduction. No, it doesn't do that. But if I see, like, you know, with significant others, sometimes your partner is just looking healthy as fuck. There's no other way to say it. It's the hottest thing in the world. And sometimes they're not. And you're like, oh my God, like they need my compassion right now. It's automatic. It's completely subconscious, but absolutely it's a very big part of it. Health, youth, shit like that, capability.
Okay, so the last podcaster the last guy that we had on the podcast was James Krieger, and he posed a question. We do this at the end of every podcast. Of the previous guy posed a question to the next guest, and his thing was, "What is something that you believe in deeply, that you wholeheartedly believe in, that you would be open to sharing, and then what evidence would you need to change your mind on whatever you deeply believe in, and would you change your mind?"
Yeah. I believe deeply that we are all constructs of a world made of forces and atoms and molecules. I believe we are all machines. And I am a machine, and we're all expressions of the universe. We're the flowers of the universe. One of the contrary opinions to that, so that basically is a shitty term for it, but it's called like objectivism. Like things really are what they are. And like you can't squint at things and like move objects with your mind or reconceive reality. The opposite of that is pure subjectivism. And that's the idea that you basically hallucinate your entire world around you. You're dreaming it and you're perceiving it. Like you guys aren't real people. This is all in my head. Now, I absolutely would change my mind if I could look at that pull-up situation behind you guys and levitate it with my head. Or if I could look at you and be like, I'm just going to squint and make him say different things. And all of a sudden you're saying out of your mouth what I want you to say, but I never told you. Shit like that, fuck yeah, I changed my mind. Well, holy shit, I am in charge. My God, this is just a dream. But like, so far I've had zero evidence of that. My entire life is just getting banged on the head with, you are a part of a system. You are a creation of that system. You are not in charge of that system. And so I deeply, deeply believe that we're all just here as individuals, only with control barely of what's inside of our minds and bodies, and not even that. That's a real good baseline for assumption for moving around in the world. Things are not just going to go your way. They can if you engineer them to, but that's not like you're not just living in a dream. I remember I was in my sophomore year. I was in a basic like intro philosophy class at Michigan. And this one kid, I came up to ask about something after class to the professor, and this other kid, a bunch of kids came up too. The kid right in front of me in line he was like, well, because it was like day one. He's like, isn't everything just a matter of perception? He's like, no, absolutely not. And the kid's like, well, how do you say? He's like, okay, dope, let me answer this guy's question, but you just stare at that wall and try to figure out how you can teleport through that wall. I'll come back to you in a second. He talked to me instead, and I was like, God damn, that is good. Because like, if everything is a matter of perception, you can perceive a hole in the wall and walk through it, get to it. You can't do it. No one's ever done it, ever. No one's ever done that. And so if you think that, people say like, there's like, what the fuck is that called? Oh my God, the law of attraction. That if you think about certain ways, the universe is going to like change to, no, that's all fucking straight up nonsense, bro. I would be willing to believe it is true if given very compelling evidence, like let me see it happen, ever.
Okay, give us a thought experiment, a question for the next guest that's going to be on the podcast. It better be fucking good, or I will be.
Damn, dude. You're on your Grandpa was a real important person to you. It was super important to you. And he's on his deathbed when you're there. And he reaches into a bag and he produces a baseball bat and a handgun. You're like, Grandpa, what the fuck? And he's like, shut up. I've dealt with your bullshit enough my whole life. You're like, okay, what? He's like, I feel it coming. I'm going to die real soon. You're like, okay. The way I'm going to die, though, is I'm going to lapse into zombie mode and try to kill you. And you're going to need to put me down. And you're like crying, Grandpa, stop saying shut up, shut the fuck up. You're like, okay. One thing could you do right for me, you piece of shit. You've been a disappointment my whole life. Like, okay, Grandpa, I get it. I want desperately more than anything else to be clobbered to death with this baseball bat. I want it to be personal. That's how you're going to send me into paradise. Every time you hit, in 30 seconds, zombie version of me with a bat, pure ecstasy reigns through my whole body and makes everything in my life complete. This is how I want to go. If you're too chicken shit to beat me up to death, here's this 9 milli, you can shoot me. It will cause me terror and fear. The first thing I see before I see the other world is hell because of you, because you're too chicken shit to beat the shit out of me with this baseball bat. It's going to take more than a few swings, man. Anyway, have fun.
Why did you have to give me that?
And he goes, ah, and you're like, oh God, thank God he's dead. And his eyes open, but like they're all fucked up. He's like, rah, and you're like, oh fuck, I really have to choose. Is it baseball bat or 9 milli? So to the next person on this podcast.
Has to decide.
What
Which one are they choosing?
Is it the easy way out for you?
I'm calling the cops, dude. I'm calling the cops.
That's even worse. Jesus, your grandpa fucking hates you, bro.
I'm calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, Granddad just told me this. What are we supposed to do?
Did you check this out? You call the cops, right? They show up, and you're like outside the hospital room, like you locked it. And they're like, so you said your grandpa was acting weird. I'm like, not acting weird, you guys. I was on the operator for like 50 minutes. It's a zombie. They open it up. He's like legit dead, right? In the fuck beep, like that. And they're like, oh, okay. Sir, do you have a registration for that 9mm weapon? You're like, that's not mine, that's his. Like, he brought it into the hospital with him when he was administered. You're like, as far as I know, like, sir, can we see your paperwork? You're like, oh my God, dude, Grandpa had one fucking last laugh at me, bro. He knew that if I called the cops, they weren't gonna fucking pin anything on him. Zombies aren't real. And then you go to fucking jail for bringing a weapon into a hospital.
Yo. Oh, shit.
Yeah. But then Grandpa's real fucked because they have a CCTV camera in the room, right? And they see him zombie out, right? And run towards you. And you have the 9mm and you have the bat. And you're like, Grandpa said. And then you beat him to death with the bat. And then at court, they're like, why didn't you just shoot him? Like, I know this sounds crazy, but he literally told me he wants to get hit with, and you tell him. Either way, you're having a bad time.
So I gotta pitch this to the next guest.
The whole thing, with all the details. You asked for it, right? You said, good one. There it is.
All right, Mike, thanks for being on the Garage Shake podcast.
Huge pleasure.
Peace.